Excuse me.
Hey guys, and welcome to our episode today on the Pathway Show. And I'm so excited. Today I have Sloan Rinaldi with me on this episode. And if you don't know her, which you probably do, she was on the third season of Barbecue Showdown on Netflix recently. And I'm so excited to have you here today, Sloan, and to be talking to you about your very unique and powerful journey in life.
Thank you so much for having me, Gabriel. It's really my honor to be here. I've wanted to talk with you for some time. I love what you're doing. And the brief time that we did share together was very impactful on my life. So I'm very happy to share that experience as well, because it's been very profound in my understanding of myself. So I'm very happy to be here.
Excited to hear more about that. I'm so happy also that you had that experience
Yes, thank you.
together.
Especially at this time,
So
so much going on.
yeah, yeah. So you've had a quite a journey, right?
Yes, sir.
From a
I would say so.
difficult upbringing to becoming a fourth generation pitmaster. What does your life look like today? And how do you reflect on how far you've come?
Wow, great question. Number one, great question. So my life literally looks today as I saw it when I was a child. Okay. So for me as a kid, I had to disassociate, right? In order to survive my daily reality, I feel that my life was in danger almost on a daily basis. So in order to survive that environment, I would put myself into film and TV. Okay. And imagine that life, right? And being in the media. Sometimes I would imagine myself as an entertainment attorney. Other times I was convinced I wanted to be a director. So I went out and got an ID bracelet made that said director when I was 10 years old. And I got a director's chair and put it in the corner, right? So everything that I'm doing now is really about what I saw. So I feel that kids like me, if you can see it, you can be it. So if you're having to disassociate to survive, that environment, that circumstance is not you. So what you're seeing, that's what you need to focus on, because that's what you can be.
Are you open to sharing more about that environment that you grew up in and like the impact that it had on you?
Well, yeah, sure. Unfortunately, today I think it's more prevalent. And let's see, from 68 to 78, I would say that it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. So for me, it was my mother became a prostitute. She was a drug addict, alcoholic. She was bipolar, multi personality, schizophrenic, alcoholic, drug addict. And obviously, the alcohol and drugs were to medicate, whatever was going on in her head. They knew her parents, I'm sure, knew that she was mentally ill very early on. She tried to kill or poison her own sister, gave her a glass of bleach and told her it was water at like 5 or 6, right? And then I think she pushed a boy out of a glass window at school, so they knew something wasn't quite right. But she grows up. I think, she says that she was, sexually abused, which I'm sure she was. Um, Gets pregnant with me at 16 or 17. Okay. The father was a high school football quarterback. He came from a tragic background, from what I understand, too, and witnessed his own mother's death tragically. And so that was all weird. And so then they have me, and I think it was my mama, my grandmother, my grandfather that kind of took me in for a bit and tried to help. But apparently, from what I know now, is that my mother became pregnant again right away and gave up a child to adoption. I didn't know about that just a few years ago. But so it led to, in my life, a lot of instability, moving place to place, many schools throughout the year, nothing ever stable. My education was self taught, nothing was stable in a traditional school, education setting. Her experiences and what she was doing, whether it be prostitution or in and out of mental hospitals or jail for whatever reason, like she'd get arrested and they have her become a confidential informant. So there was an organized crime ring that was transporting farm equipment, right? And they were gambling too. So they had her, the local sheriff's department had her working inside to try to get those people. And one day I'm sitting at a table doing homework with a friend down the street, and the cops burst in the door, basically, run to the back room. And apparently she was overdosing or something had happened. The people that she was working for found out and they were trying to kill her. So there was that. We were driving down the freeway and people would be shooting at us. I remember that. And her shooting out the window on 45 South, in Houston. So those are the kind of things that obviously anyone with a sane mind wants to disassociate from, right? And I'm like, I am not this, not these people. So there came a time when I was in, I think, sixth or seventh grade, and she had was disappearing for long stretches of time. And I would just get myself back and forth to school. I was riding a mini bike that I had saved up to buy, and I think I was parking in the teacher's parking lot so that they wouldn't know that I was driving myself, right? Because I was too, obviously too young. But at some point, they caught me that I was driving myself back and forth, and they just happened to call my house, and my mom happened to be there out of nowhere and answer the phone. So typically, in a situation like that, now you would snatch that kid up, and they'd go into the system, but that did not happen. So there's a lot of instances where she would be overdosing, police or paramedics would come, something violent had happened, and then they would just leave her, there with me and just go. It was weird. Those were the times, though. They didn't know how to deal with that kind of situation. Now, thank God, it's a whole different situation. Kids are pulled out of those environments and, better or worse, they are put into the system where they have an opportunity to maybe end up somewhere that they can benefit from. That's a whole tragic story itself. But for me, I think it was best that I was not put into the system. I think God blessed me with an incredible mind, right? That's my biggest blessing is my mind. And the ability to disassociate at such a young age and then to later, and not that I haven't struggled. I struggled a lot with like resentment, anger towards my mom, quick to anger at things that I just see as unjust, things like that. So those things were there. But for the most part, I knew that my mission in life would be very different. I had a destiny and I had to disregard where I came from to get there for sure.
Thank you for sharing that. That's quite the story, Sloan.
I'm not
I'm sorry
told
that
too many people that. Yeah.
right. I'm sorry that you had to go through that in your childhood. As a child, you need you need predictability, safety more than anything, and
No, I
closeness
see
to.
that. I realize that. I realized that more actually after the summit that I did with you, the Rewire Summit, and that I never really looked at the fact that I was not parented, that there was never any sense of safety, comfort, those things were just not there. And that when I did get a semblance of those things, it definitely came from my grandmother and my great grandmother. And thank God for that, because I felt like they loved me in a special way that maybe they didn't love other people around me. I could see that. So very interesting. I'm very blessed, though. Really, I think that for me, sure, I would rather not have been so scared all the time, but it has contributed to the person that I am, and I think that my story may benefit others.
Thank you so much for sharing that, for being so vulnerable and so open about it. Right? It's not an easy thing to
No,
share.
it's not. It's not
It's
really.
not an easy thing to
No,
share.
and I've
Yeah,
not done it very often, so
yeah.
sure.
So you mentioned your grandma, your great grandma.
Mhm.
Were there other people and moments, like pivotal moments in your life as you grew up, that were there for you that helped you navigate these like struggles that you could
Yes, absolutely.
lean on?
Throughout, there was a third grade history teacher that impacted me in reference to history, and she happened to be she was in Houston, Texas, and I was there a brief time. And I live in Houston, I'm a native of Houston, but that particular part of Houston in that school, I spent a short time there, but she always impacted me. The knowledge that I gained from her about history was very important to me. And then there would be people throughout that I would encounter that I may not have even known, but somehow they would approach me basically and look at me after either observing me, I guess, and would come to tell me that there was something special about me and that there was nothing I couldn't do. Those moments, those words stuck with me. Thank God for that, right? Um, so my mama and my great grandmother, we called her Mammy, which is a term in the South that's not very has a negative connotation, unfortunately. But in our family and being from Texas, that is what we called her. So, but she was my great grandmother, and the two of them, an incredible story on their own. Gabriel. I mean, my great grandmother became a heroin addict in the 30s, ended up in a federal prison, rendered both her daughters. My grandmother ended up in the system basically at that time, which was like an orphanage, but more like a prison camp for children, in the 40s. She would try to escape, actually the 30s. And they would like shave her head and put her in a isolation type room and horrible. She literally stayed in there until she aged out, right? So at 18, she ages out, has three children. This is like at the end of World War II, right in the middle of World War II. She ages out and has three kids by three men. The last one being my grandfather, my papa, that we call papa, but he's not biologically my grandfather. My mom being among the children. I think my mom was the middle child. So her life was tragic too. I mean, obviously, she had no ability, she had no reference of love and comfort herself. How could she? It was nothing but hell and torment. So then she tries to parent three children, two girls and a boy, the boy being the last with my papa. It's just unfortunate. My mom's sister, my Aunt Billy, is also very just, I mean, crazy, but more functional. You know, I hate to use the word crazy. I'm sorry. I don't mean that in a negative way, really, but it is just who she is. So that's, their stories are just very entangled and very generational. And I thank God that myself and my brother Anthony, that he blessed us with a mind to be able to recover, break generational horrible curses, and to have good lives.
I'm happy to hear that. What happened to you specifically after you had this childhood? Like, how did you? Because your story for me is it's a story of suffering and pain, but it's also a story of resilience, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Uh, so, what happened like later for you in life when you perhaps left your parental house, or like what did you do?
Yes. So, in my I want to say the end of my junior year, I might have been a senior. My mom literally dropped me off on the highway, okay, in Beaumont, Texas, off I-10, close to an apartment complex. Had a friend that lived in the apartment complex that stayed with her that night, and then I found a place with some other gay homeless youth. We were all in Southeast Texas, rural Beaumont. It's a very small town, very redneck. We found a very old, dilapidated apartment to share together. Tried to get myself back and forth to high school. That did not go very well. Eventually, I dropped out of high school my senior year and got a GED, but I did place very highly. Then I was recruited by the military. I took the ASVAB. I did very well on that. And then they were relentlessly pursued me, but I was scared to death to go into the military. First, being a lesbian at that time is 1982. They were going to kill me. So I'm going in. So then it became just bouncing around for a couple of years until I landed in San Antonio. Actually, at the end of that, a couple of years, just the end of 82, 83, I ended up in San Antonio. And that's where my career path starts. So I'd always known that there was nothing that I could not do. I could educate and teach myself anything. Fortunately for me, my dad's partner, which I call my dad, is Nick Rinaldi. He raised me as his own. In those periods of my most desperation with my mom, he was always trying to save me. But for whatever reason, my biological father would never surrender parental rights, even though I'd never met him. So my dad, Nick Rinaldi, would always try to take me and save me, basically. So I ended up in San Antonio, and his partner, Barbara Van Norman, very strong woman, became a very big role model and mentor for me. Also a Virgo, which is big Virgo energy, right? So they had a friend that owned a business, and she actually, yeah, they were doing servicing plant material. So inside offices, atriums, that sort of thing. They were decorating offices with plant material, and then they had a maintenance crew that would come in and take care of them. So I went in and I met with a lady, and the first thing she says to me is, "I want somebody that's older, established, and has kids with experience." I'm like, I'm 18, have no children, no experience. But, obviously I talked myself into the job, and thank God for that, because it did change my life. It really did. It gave me something that I didn't know that I needed. I would teach myself plant material and then disease and insects and then how to control those things and the environments and all that kind of good stuff. So I excelled at that quickly. And then I realized, well, I cannot be inside. I absolutely cannot be inside. I have to be outside, right? So then I would pass a landscape company every day on my route. So I stopped in there one day, and again, same thing. They want somebody older, experienced, yada yada yada. Talked them into the same thing plus commission. So I talked them into a sales job plus commission. I had no experience, and the same thing. I went out in the yard and started learning all that plant material. If that's exterior plant material, whole different deal. So now I know all the things about inside. Now I replicate that for exterior. And sure enough, the first big job I get is with a prominent basketball player in San Antonio. He's now a Hall of Famer. His name's
Hmm.
George Gervin. They call him the Iceman for the San Antonio Spurs. Him and his wife had purchased a big home in San Antonio, and that was my first big project to work on. And I realized that one, I like the size of larger projects better. I don't like doing small things. And then it shifted quickly that I wanted to be in commercial construction, right? So that's where that journey started. So I went from doing smaller residential with one big residential that showed me that I wanted to do bigger things, right? And then I went into commercial, and that's what really took off for me. So I became one of really maybe one of one in Texas, female to do landscape large scale construction. And that was where that's really I had the same passion for that as I do for barbecue, and that really saved me. It gave me a definite. I had a passion for trees, rocks, creativity, and business, and it all came together in commercial landscape. So the art of being able to negotiate big dollar deals and things like that, I really enjoyed the creativity of just the beauty that that you would end up with, and that you can go back and leave your mark and look at something I did 40 years ago is very satisfying. But along the way, though, I had issues like in my late teens, early 20s, I rode hot chucks. Got in trouble for riding hot chucks. I got arrested 3 times for those hot chucks because I refused to take care of it responsibly. Okay, ridiculous. I was self-sabotaging, obviously. Why? I was terrified. I would run from them. Never. I was hoping always never to get pulled over, right? But I'm not sure why I did not take care of it. So I did. I went through that 3 times, and then finally that was it. I was like, okay, I got this, man. No more. Never again. That was 1993, I think. Yeah, 93 was the last time I got in trouble for him. Wow. So anyway, it's just crazy. Like 1993 was also the last time I got a traffic ticket. So that should tell you something. I just literally like went the opposite direction.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Something that pops out at me, like when I'm listening to your story and telling and how you're framing your entire story, is your incredible self-belief.
Yes, absolutely. You have to.
The self-belief. Where does it come from? Like
That's
when did
God,
you?
Gabriel. That's God, man. Because it's innate. It's innate. I don't, by the grace of God.
Has it always been there with you, or is it like a
Yes.
point in your life where you can point?
No, absolutely. I think my earliest memory is of resilience.
It's wonderful.
Absolutely. And just knowing that there was another destiny, knowing that I had special destiny. And this was, I was different than these people around me. Okay. Um, and then when those random people, it's usually like a doctor or a lawyer or something, that would come up and take that time for a kid and say something like that, that words that imprinted on them, right? Forever. And then, so when I do get to San Antonio, I meet Barbara. I was in that era where I was floundering. I had written hot checks for the first time. I got arrested for the first time. And she looked at me, she says, "You have so much potential. There's nothing, literally nothing that you cannot do. You're just capable. And I always remembered that. And I think that's what really, ultimately, it was always those words that pushed me on. Knew that I could not do well, that I had to do well.
You've mentioned that barbecue became more than just a career for you. It became a path of healing also, right? A
Oh,
path to
absolutely.
healing.
Absolutely.
How did your work in barbecue help you process and overcome some of the pain of your past?
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot to that. At 50, okay, my mom had finally passed away the way that I knew she would, basically, unfortunately in her addiction and in a bad state, basically. But I felt relief at first, as I'm sure most people do in my situation. She had suffered so much through her life and she did not want to be here. I've never seen somebody try so hard to kill themselves and still be around. Just by the grace of God, somehow she survived time after time. And but this time she did not. And so there was a tremendous amount of relief for the first 3 weeks to a month. And then it set in that the regret that I had, that I did not have a better understanding and better acceptance of just how sick she was, right, throughout my life. That I felt that I had been trying to save her since I was 3 years old was my earliest recollection, and that I could not. So the last year of our life was quite remarkable because we had reached a point where um, she had overdosed on 93 Ambien. I found her unresponsive in a bathtub. Okay. The fire department broke down the door. They got her out. She survived. And her thing was, why didn't you guys just let me go? Really. But at that time, that was it for me, really, as far as knowing that there was nothing I could do. Nothing. I gave up that aspect. And somehow, man, that just released so much from me. I should have known. You hear people say that all the time. And it did. It just relieved me so much to know that I realized I could not save her, and that she was sick, and that, it's all in God's hands. So that last year, finally, the best year of our relationship, and in my understanding of that she was really sick and there was nothing I could do. So 2 weeks after she dies, her psychiatrist calls me very unusually, right? And just wants me to know that she had felt that the last year was the best our relationship had ever been. And that gave me it's like, a gift from God kind of thing, that she was trying to communicate through him. That doesn't happen very often, I don't think. So I was grateful for that, very much so. So barbecue that comes from this. I'm on the couch watching barbecue pitmasters, right? I'm watching way too much TV. I went through a terrible depression, which I didn't realize at the time that's what it was. I was just taking time off, I was just laying on the couch watching TV, but oh, I was depressed. Um, for the first time, I had always been a clean freak. For the first time in my life, I remember the night that I let dishes sit in my sink overnight. I knew then I was depressed, right? Barbecue Pitmasters. I'm watching that show, a light bulb moment. My family had done barbecue since 1909. My uncle just sold the oldest restaurant barbecue joint in that whole area just last year. Fowler's had stood as the oldest, and so that's gone now. But so my family had been involved in barbecue. So I'm watching this show, and I look around, it's all men, and there's one woman basically, Melissa Cookston, and I'm like, wow, okay, I can do this. And so I went and got a small pit, put it in the backyard, and started smoking. And immediately, it's like God said, I'm going to give you this gift. You're going to have a gift of fire management, and you're going to have the gift of creating amazing barbecue." And out of nowhere, because I had really, literally never done a brisket. I had only smoked turkeys at the holidays on Thanksgiving because that's the flavor profile that I preferred on a turkey because turkey's so bland. So I smoked them with a Creole profile. There's a lot of flavor. So I did that. So I knew I had some ability, but oh my goodness. So here, God gives me this huge blessing and it just took off. So I had a big pit built and decided I'm going to go for this. I can do this. I'm going to compete. I'm going to become, Melissa Cookston is the winningest woman in barbecue. So I'm going to be the next winningest woman in barbecue, right? I like to succeed in male dominated industries. That really turns me on, right? So the pit comes and our first competition after practicing on it for a short time is Bands, Brews, and Barbecue. And it's for Ronald McDonald House. You guys have McDonald's, I'm sure, right? So Ronald McDonald House is a huge charitable foundation that supports kids with cancer at MD Anderson, right? So that's what the charity benefit, and or that's what they benefit. And it's like I'm the only woman there. These guys pulled in their big party buses and margarita machines, and they're there to do competition barbecue, right? And it's a big party, and they drink all night, and party all night. And I'm this lone woman in my tent. I mean, just studiously doing everything I know to do, man, because I want to be perfect. Anything I do, I want to be the best at. I'm always in the pursuit of excellence at whatever I do. Okay, so they watch me. I could feel them eyeballing me all night, right? And then my dad shows up out of nowhere to surprise me, and that was just oh god. Him and I both are just balling, and so we're both a mess, By the time it comes to give out the awards, so sure enough, I win with ribs, man, and I was just like, oh my god, I couldn't believe it. What an incredible experience. So much like how I'm sure an athlete feels when they win something at that point. So I was going to think I never won a tournament. Like tennis was my sport, but I never won a tournament or anything like that. And winning that night was just so incredible. It was just a lot of juice. So I knew I was on the right track there with barbecue. And from that night, I was invited to the state championship. So that night there were 20 teams. So I was invited to a state championship of 250. And I'm like, and these are experienced teams, right? The guy right next to me ends up being today, like he has the number 3 joint in the state. And he also ended up being my judge on Chopped on Food Network. So it's kind of cool. All this stuff is very, family oriented barbecue. Everybody knows everybody. So, but I didn't know anyone then, I was a new girl and I'm 50 already. And they're like, what the heck? So I sure enough, out of 250, obviously I wasn't going to win or anything, but I placed 14th, so it's like, in the top, 5%. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do this still, man. But I really realized that I wanted to do craft barbecue, which is what Texas is about. Okay. Texas barbecue, Texas craft barbecue is very much about the culture of our state. And in barbecue, we do it all. So we do beef, we do pork, poultry, seafood. We do the whole gamut of proteins. And then on sides, what's become our craft are the sides, really, the sides and the desserts, as well as the meat. So there's the craft of smoking the meat, but then at some point, everybody gets good at smoking proteins, okay? Because you get better every time. So then it does. It becomes what can set you apart, and it's going to be your sides and your desserts. So I started taking 100, century-old recipes and tweaking them, elevating them with refined cooking technique and then premium ingredients, right? So those things start taking off and they're just next level. And so it all starts coming together. I realized I wanted to serve to the masses. I want to do catering and I want to serve, barbecue to the people. So, and this one thing led to another, I started doing a pop-up on the weekends with the cupcake lady. Okay. I just hauled my pit up there. She had a room for me to put it in. And then we served barbecue out of her cupcake window. Well, that, lines for like 3 hours, right? We were just like overwhelmed and it would be Saturday and Sunday and it was crazy. Then from there, Texas Monthly comes out and does a review. And Texas Monthly is the holy grail of barbecue in Texas, as well as being an incredible magazine. I would compare it to Rolling Stone, if you're familiar with Rolling Stone. It's like the
Yeah, of
Texas
course.
Monthly version. Yeah. So their food critic for barbecue in the area comes out, does a great review, ends up online. I mean, things just start taking off. I end up on a local media TV, NBC station. That was, I had the anchor literally say into the camera that my ribs were life changing. Okay, so the
Mm.
power of media. I leave the studio, and 15 minutes later, I walk into a place for breakfast or brunch, and a lady stands up and says, "I want those life changing ribs." She had literally just seen me 15 minutes ago. So now I get it. Media is where I want to go. So it was then my, really for me in formulating this plan, it was multi-pronged and somewhat diverse in that I wanted to do barbecue specifically and on a craft and an excellent level and do something that no other woman was doing. And then I wanted to parlay that into making sure my sauces got into the retail market. And then I wanted to develop multimedia, print, book, and TV. So all of those things, by the grace of God, have come together. And it is a huge blessing. And I know that for me, it was always my destiny, to be in media. I would be in the bathroom at 10 years old interviewing myself, okay, as Barbara Walters. Ask the question as Barbara Walters and respond as Sloan. Now, I don't, it was always about some type of uh, movie or TV event, right? But I knew that that's what I wanted to be in that realm. And by the grace of God, man, it took, 60 years, well, last 50 years, but here I am. And it's to me, it's surreal, it's incredible, and it's very thrilling. And I feel like I'm one of the most blessed people I've ever known by far.
Thank you for sharing that. And when you share all of this wonderful journey that you just pointed to, and how you had the courage to really throughout, like what I hear telling your story and your narrative, right? That there's this just sense that I know what I want. I'm gonna go and get it. I'm gonna make it work somehow, some
Yes,
way, somehow.
yes.
And then you do it. And I'm curious about, like, when you talk about these things in this conversation or in any other conversation, is there a specific memory that was specifically important for your own healing journey? When you think about these things, like, what happens to you? What do you feel? What's your sense?
When I think about a memory that's specific to my journey,
Yeah.
well, one is I'm grateful. Mostly, I'm always grateful for that memory that spurs me on or empowers me to make the next move or reminds me, of who I am and where I came from, and I have a lot to draw on, you know. So for me, I'm always grateful for whatever that memory may be that's going to benefit me and help me move to the next step. And one thing that I'm a big believer in is visualization. In order to attain success, you have to be able to visualize it. So when I think back and in reference to visualization, that was something that someone told me very early on. And I think I was probably 11 or 12, but I think it's at that point that I really started honing in to visualization. And I think that most entrepreneurs, and this is what I'm learning, disassociate when they're kids. They have such a wild imagination. Okay. They're always thinking of what they can do. There's always a pursuit of some type of excellence, involved. And for me, thank God I had those things. Again, I always say, God, the best gift I've ever received is my mind. So I feel that every success empowers you to the next thing. Okay. So for me in barbecue was I was able to successfully render mouth-watering succulent barbecue. One. All right. So to go with that barbecue, I knew I wanted to create an amazing sauce, right? Couldn't be just any sauce. It had to be amazing. Especially in Texas, so competitive. Create amazing sauce. Well, where do I want that sauce to be immediately, man? When the moment I tasted it, it would be in HEB. HEB is the largest grocery chain in Texas. Okay. They're not just any grocery chain. They are like supersized. So if you can imagine, I'm sure, do you guys have Walmarts?
No, but we have our own brands, like Ika, we call it. We have Coop and so on.
Are
But
they
we have the equivalent.
supersized? Are they
Yeah, we have
supersized?
we have. They're large.
Okay.
They would be this equivalent of a Walmart. Yeah, they would be the
Yes.
equivalent of a. We have Costco here.
Okay. All right. So imagine HEB stores, they're that size, right? And there's over 300 of them in Texas. So it's a big thing. So they carry all the national brands, but they make room for thousands of Texas-based products, right? So it's a very interesting concept and a great model. Well, they hear about my sauce. All right. I visualized immediately that it would be there. within the year, somebody has written an email to the boss of the sauce. Okay, he buys all the sauces for HEB. That's what we call him, boss of the sauce, Mark Bradshaw. So he gets an email and he's reading it, right? And he says, Sloan Rinaldi. He says, is this any chance this is Nick Rinaldi's daughter? He knows my dad. Okay.
Mm.
So this is an opening. And he's like, okay, I tell you what, bring your rig, present your sauce and your barbecue, and we see what we can do. So I haul my rig up there, do my brisket, present the sauce, and for the first time in my life as a salesperson, before I entered the room to negotiate the deal, it was done. They had literally put me in an unprecedented amount of stores, launched me into 300 stores. They made it so easy for me. They produced the sauce for the bottling company, they distributed it to their warehouses, then to their stores, their people stocked it. I didn't have to do anything, right? It was amazing, amazing opportunity, unprecedented. So I did that for 5 years exclusively. But I always realized that I wanted the sauce to be better and I wanted to go global. Okay. So I took control of it back after 5 years. I dropped the high fructose corn syrup. I developed an all natural and an organic variety. And then now, so we're selling global. And I like this model much better. But to be an HEB in Texas is an unprecedented amount of PR. Okay. I was on their Super Bowl commercial. JJ Watt, the biggest football player in the world, was what's up for, Texans tailgating our football team here, NFL football team. So it was just a great experience, so every step of the way, it's like God said, here you go, here you go, here you go. You do the work, I'll do the rest. Don't ever let anybody outwork you. That's the ticket right there. So God's like, this is what you're asking for. You do the work, I'll give it to you. Yeah.
That's such a wonderful story and so inspiring in one sense. But I'm curious also because I'm thinking about my listeners and what they might wonder. And, maybe this is a strange question to ask you because you have had such a rough, adverse childhood, right? Your entire experience. But what about failure?
Oh God,
What's
there's
the
always
biggest?
failure, man. No, actually, I'm going to take that back. There's no failure to the day you don't get up. So it's all experience to me. That's how I live because I've had many situations of experience and I learned from those experiences. Were they failures? Absolutely not. Now I can see how somebody's point of view may be different in their perception. I hear hears that all the time about my barbecue journey. They're like, why does she go on? She had this setback. Are you freaking kidding me? It's you don't give up. I can see why not you don't work for yourself, if that's your mentality. There is no failure. It is experience. The only failure in life, the only failure is the day you have a setback and you don't get back up. You don't try again. That to me is failure.
That's very inspiring. I tend to agree with you from my personal experience as well.
Yes, I'm sure you
I've
do.
seen-
Yeah, I think any people that keep going and are successful in anything are doing it just because of that. It's not failure, it's experience.
yeah, that's a great way to actually reframe something like that, right? It's not failure, it's experience.
That is
Something I
absolutely right.
learned from and something that can help me teach me something that I can learn from and then take my next steps and do so.
Absolutely.
But obviously, the experience can be a bit painful, right?
Oh God, yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
be
Yeah, I've
painful.
had many painful experiences, emotional and financial, you know?
Percent,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. Okay, so you created a space in the barbecue world for women as well, right?
Yes.
Particularly in an industry that's, you just said it, it's dominated by men. And how does this align with your own journey, like your own healing journey and your desire to help others? Because I think that's, especially young girls, that's something we have talked about before outside of this conversation and helping others find strength in themselves.
This has been a wonderful last couple of weeks for me, and specifically in regard to that. I want to be able to help women succeed in male-dominated industries, whatever that industry may be. And I think fundamentally it comes to two things. The message I'm trying to pass down to these girls is that with passion and work ethic, literally, there's nothing they cannot do. To me, skill comes later on the list because you can learn anything, but without passion and without work ethic, you really don't get anywhere. So number one is I'm trying to drill that into these girls and everyone, all these young folks in the meeting right now, to the DMs that I get from all over the world of women and men, but a lot of women that are for the first time going out and lighting the pit themselves, like whether it be a grill or a pit. And there's a difference, a grill, you grill hot dogs, you grill steaks, you smoke brisket, you smoke chicken, you smoke those things on a pit. But on a grill, you're grilling things, be it steak or whatever. So those women are now learning those differences and going out and enjoying it. So that to me is such I get a really good feeling in my heart. And then this weekend, this past weekend, I was invited to judge the tryouts for a high school barbecue team. Okay, only in Texas, right? We have high school barbecue teams. And this particular team, last year they filled one team. They had 5 members. They had 14 kids try out this year. Okay, 4 of them were girls. All right, they had one girl last year. So that in itself totally impresses me. Then I get there and I start really delving into the deal. So it's run in our what we call our agricultural department of high school. So they have a whole agricultural department umbrella, and within that there is the mechanics department, the welding, and barbecue, all that kind of good stuff. Barbecue's in there, and which is to me phenomenal. So it's run by 3 women, unprecedented in Texas. That women run the agricultural department and the barbecue team. So this keeps building for me. I mean, I'm like, "Ah, this is incredible. My heart's getting bigger. I'm so excited, and I'm happier to be there than they could possibly know. So the whole day, I was there with them from 5:30 till about 5 that afternoon, but they got there at 4:30. So when I rolled in, all those kids, their parents and parents, aunts and uncles and cousins were there supporting them at 4:30 in the morning, right? They did all their prep, got their pit slit at 6, and then they did it like they would do a competition. So they turn in chicken comes first, ribs, and the last thing you get is brisket. So we went through the whole deal, plus a side and a dessert. So it was just so cool that all 14 kids that tried out ended up on a team. So there's 2 teams of 5, and then each team got 2 managers. So those things for me are just absolutely inspirational. And then I had a father send me a message, and he had ordered one of our cookbooks, and he asked if I could bring it and sign it for his daughter in person. And I was like, absolutely. He was close by, and I really didn't know what the age of the girl was, as a matter of fact, because I had seen that he had a son that looked to be like 7 or 8. So I'm thinking either she's like that age or younger for whatever reason. I said, absolutely. He seemed like a really good guy, and I felt comfortable. He owns a local custom car business. He deals with a lot of local sports celebrities and all that kind of good stuff. So I felt comfortable with that. So I went over there, and I knock on the door, and this 10-year-old girl comes to the door and opens it. And I mean, the look on her face, it was all I could
Wow.
do to hold it together, just these huge tears well up in her eyes. And I'm like, I've never experienced anything like this. you know, either. And I'm like, I just can't believe it. So I give her a hug, and then we go inside. Her dad had kept her home from school for this, right? And he's videoing the whole thing. And I'm talking to her, and I'm like, we eventually get around to, never let anyone outwork you, have passion, work ethic. I said, what is your passion? And she looks at me and says, barbecue. Oh God, I mean, really, everything in me to choke all that down, right? Till I got out the door. And I signed the book for her, and, I'm just so excited. And it's just one of the best experiences of literally, I'll say it's the best day of my life. Literally the best day of my life. I left, got down the street, pulled over, and lost it. I had to sit there and cry for 5 minutes. But it's just,
Wow.
it was an amazing experience. I'm so thankful to God that in my lifetime, I was able to experience something like
So when I'm listening to you and hearing you talk, and so inspiring how you have a desire to serve others, and especially girls and young girls. So my question is then, what do you think are some of the unique challenges that you think women face in this industry? And how do you hope your example will changes for next generation? You've already answered this to some extent, but what unique challenges at least do you think that they're facing?
Well, there's always right now, and until I feel that there's a female president maybe in this country will help shift the equality, aspect of things and allow more equity, be it in the financial realm or even in just the social aspect of things. I think that will be pivotal and will help push us in that direction more so than anything before. Because in America, in the States, there is inequity in so many things. It's unfortunate. There's racial inequity, there's sexual, gender inequity, obviously, so much prejudice. It's unfortunate. But we fight, we fight the good fight. And there have been women along the way, centuries, a century's worth of women, more than that, that have fought first for our right to vote in 1924. In 1974, they got us. Fortunately, efforts led to us being able to actually have an account, a bank account, and a credit card with our name on it. It took from 1924, from when we were first allowed to vote. 1974, we were allowed to have an account with our name on it. So here we are, 2024. We are going to elect a woman as president. We are going to elect a woman, okay? And she is going to show what 240 some odd years of mess, okay, has left us with, and we are going to move forward. And it's time for women to rise up and take and seize control of the power that they have within them. Let their voice be heard. Do not be afraid, because the future is ours. As far as I'm concerned, in America, men have had every opportunity, specifically white heterosexual men, if you really get down to it, have had every opportunity to not leave us this mess, and they have. So we need to really rein it all in and show them what we can do. And we are so capable. We work harder. We try harder. We care more. I mean, it's just our time. I really feel that, in every sense, everywhere, every single industry, every walk of society. I feel that this is the era for women to really stand up and assert themselves and be contributing, but also because we always contribute. We contribute, I think, more than anybody almost, in so many different ways. So I think it's our time to really not only contribute, but monetize and capitalize on those opportunities as well.
I'm right there with you. My understanding, my take of this whole thing and the questions about equality and allowing girls and women to rise to power and have position in society and have, encouraging them to become their own entrepreneurs and open their own businesses and, believing in themselves and all of this. I think that a society where there's a balance, a society where you have more women in power positions is a healthier society. Because I think that it's not only women that benefit from women being in power positions. It's actually men as well.
Absolutely. The world, everyone. Yeah, everyone.
We need women to rise to power. We need women to step into their own power, because that's also part, I think, in my understanding, part of the healing of this world, in one sense. Just as you said, the injustice, the structures that you have in society that stops women, and not only women, like you said, other groups as well. I think it's detrimental, because it impacts mental health. It impacts not only the mental health of, obviously, of those who are suffering, but also for men, right?
Absolutely.
We create toxic environments and so on. So I think that I'm right there with you. So I really love that about your story.
Thank you. I'm so happy to hear you say that you agree with that kind of
Absolutely.
thought.
Absolutely.
It's
What
it's
do you think?
unfortunate.
Yeah. What do you think need to change, either socially or culturally, for young girls to have more opportunities and feel empowered to pursue their dreams?
What do I think needs to change? Well, I think one is electing a female president in my country. Okay, it's going to start there. How can you deny equity to women based on their gender when you have elected a woman to the highest office in the country, right? So for me, well, actually, I say that with some caution, because when President Obama was elected, I thought we had turned the tide. You know, I thought that we had gotten past such horrible racism and bigotry. I thought this is a new day. I remember standing in front of my TV the night that him and his family walk out to that stadium in Chicago and just bawling, thinking that finally, we're going to move past all this hatred and bigotry, but what happened, unfortunately, is that all those insecure white people, I'm sorry, but all those insecure white people more or less freaked out and and just amassed this huge party of hatred, you know, and seized back what little power they thought they were going to lose, or, that they had. And so now I'm thinking, well, so just like I thought then that maybe this is a new day, I'm thinking that now that maybe we'll get our equity, but at the same time, I know that there is an element out there that is so hell bent on making this country a nationalized country that I don't know, if we'll have the ultimate success I want now. I think it would be remarkable if we elected a female president now and then we elect another female president. Then I know that we're moving on.
I think that, just to mirror what you said, that equality and has to be built on different levels. I agree with you that it's a powerful symbol. That it's a country like USA can elect a female president. That's absolutely true. But at the same time, I think that the work has to be done on an individual level and on a communal level.
Absolutely.
So it has to be done on several levels at the same time. So I think while you see, if it happens that she's elected president, you will see definitely changes, and she will be a symbol and inspiration to many
That's
young
right.
girls who will actually strive and believe in her and believe in themselves because of it. So that's actually powerful. But I think that the change that needs to happen happens on various levels, policy levels, on on municipality level, on state level.
The school boards in Texas are taking away books. You know, they are destroying the education system. They do not want students now to literally know about slavery. They refer to them as workers. They refer to them as people that benefited from that opportunity. It's
Mm.
sad and it's sick. And for me, it's that you do not, the only way to avoid repeating history is to know your history. You want to learn from it, right? So when you're taking those books out and you're reframing the context of what reality was, I mean, I grew up on a farm my dad had in Industry, Texas. It was a cotton plantation. The land was bought from Stephen F. Austin, who's one of the founders of Texas. It was a 300-acre cotton plantation at one time. In the 70s, when I went there, when my dad got the property, there were still slave quarters literally on the property, okay, with the artifacts inside those quarters, okay, that had been left like the day they were freed, okay, is absolutely the most amazing thing. So I know in my lifetime, I have known a person as a child that had been a slave, okay, that they were that old. And then I've known people today that their great grandparents were slaves. So that to me is inarguable. It is our reality. And just by taking the books from our school and not educating people is not erasing it. So you're just allowing maybe an opportunity for it to happen again.
So education is so important.
Very
You see
important.
this see this everywhere in the world. There are other places I don't want to go
So the
into it, but
justice, it starts with the school board system, goes to our local city council. We have city council, mayor, governor, and president. And along the lines, we have senators and representatives. So each level, in Texas, for instance, they redistrict the area in order to prevent election of Democratic officials. Okay. So at some point it's called gerrymandering. So they took areas that were rural and gave them large, vast areas where there are no population, but gave them tremendous power. Okay. And then cities like Houston that are very much more, um, they're not conservative, not liberal. We're just, average citizens. We're fiscally conservative and socially liberal, and it is a fight to try to maintain some representation, even though we're the majority of the people because of the redistricting. So Texas is stuck with senators and representatives that, our best interests are not their agenda.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. I want to segue into a different topic, if is that okay with you?
Yes, sir.
You have described barbecue that you have said that it's more than just about food, right? It's
Yes.
about bringing people together. And so my question is, how has building your own barbecue community helped you create a sense of belonging and connection perhaps you didn't have growing up?
Yeah, I tell you, barbecue in Texas and really around the world, and food in general, it's a communal event. I think it unites people and brings people together from all walks of life. And specifically with barbecue, I have found that you can take the most wealthy guy and the poorest guy, right? And you can put them at the same communal table, having the same culinary experience, and they're in the pursuit of incredible barbecue. Now, you cannot take a really poor guy and take him to a fine dining experience and have him enjoy the same type of meal. So, for me, barbecue unites. It shows us that there is much more that brings us together than divides us. For instance, on Barbecue Showdown season 3, right? There is someone for everyone to identify with. So more or less, there's only one Sloan type or one Gerald type or whatever, but every person can identify with someone there. The moment we met from all over the country, never having met each other before, we completely connected as a family. We immediately had a love and respect for each other and treated each other just like that. We treated each other the way we wanted to be treated. And that's, the ticket for me. So that experience, I'm so happy to see that it transcended and went through the screen, and that people have identified with the fact that kindness matters. Okay, so the barbecue that we do is like a gift of love, basically. It is. It's our love food. It's our love language. It's just a gratifying feeling to bring so many people together. After Barbecue Showdown season 3 dropped, I have received thousands, and I mean literally thousands of direct messages, which I did not expect. I thought comments on posts and things like that were like skyrocketing. I was getting tons of followers that I'd never had before. But what really got me was the fact that people literally took the time to find me and then sit down and write a message, okay, telling me their story. And I mean, I've read thousands. And fortunately for me, when that happened, we were in the midst of a power outage in Houston that lasted 9 days. Okay. The only thing we had, gratefully, by way of our generator, we had our generator, an AC unit, and we were able to have Wi-Fi. So I was able to sit there for 9 days and go through all those messages and interact with everyone and respond and communicate. And that is a gift that I'm just so grateful for, because any other time, I don't think I would have had that much time to devote to it. But to be able to read those messages, and the common denominator literally in every single message was human kindness. Okay. That it had resonated and impacted them in such a profound way that they thought they needed to sit down and write me a message about it. I mean, your heart just wants to explode. You think that, when you see so much negativity via news and whatnot, then something like this, so real and tangible, has resonated. And it changed my life in another way too. I mean, it just really opened my eyes to the fact that we desperately need this. We desperately need to know that if you treat each other the way you want to be treated, number one, all the world's problems go away. It becomes real simple. And for whatever reason, we can't seem to quite do that. I don't get it. But for me, I think I want to take that mantle and just make sure that fundamentally that human kindness be what we lead with.
Yeah, I think that's your legacy, isn't it?
I
In the
hope
end.
so. Would that be
Yeah,
incredible
yeah, absolutely.
from God?
I think that's the impact you would have from hearing you talking about the messages that you received from people and the impact that you have had on them. And it seems to be the case, right?
That's the
The
biggest
kindness.
blessing of my entire life. The events of the last couple of weeks and these messages and interacting with the people and reading what they have said and how it's impacted them. It's impacted me maybe far more than it could ever impact them. Maybe, I don't know. It's changed my life and opened my eyes and my heart in a way that I'm so very grateful. They've changed my life. And every platform, anywhere that I can say this, it would be that first it would be say to the kids, you're not your circumstance, right? You are lovable. It is not your fault. And what you see in your mind is what you can be. Okay. Just hold on to that. And then secondly, it is going to be that, well, actually there's three things. Age is but a number. At 50, I went from one career, leaving a career that I was very passionate about, and segued and went into something completely different. It is, again, work ethic and passion. You can do anything. It doesn't matter your age. And then, lead with kindness, bottom line, and treat each other the way you want to be treated. And really everything in every situation, it benefits you.
You're such an inspiration, Sloan.
No, God bless you, man. I want to tell you, my wife right now is reading for the first time a version of the Bible that, is she's trying to understand. I mean, she's been asking me questions. I've got a lot of questions right now that just all popped into our head, just the first few, paragraphs of like, why are people not actually talking about this? Because it seems so obvious, right? So we'll have to talk about it another time because I have a big question for you about it, right? So,
Absolutely.
but just you've been very impactful in our life, in a way that I've never seen anyone be as impactful, in such a positive way, opening our eyes to so many things, and you're a blessing. So you need to know that.
Thank you so much, Sloan. I appreciate that very much.
No, thank
It's
you,
been
Gabriel.
has been also very impactful for me.
Yeah.
So the feeling is actually mutual. You never leave the work without an impact. You both have an impact and you're impacted as well. You go into a room, a space with people, and you have deep conversations, and you talk about suffering and struggle. You go out there a different person with some kind of insight, with something new, with some renewal within you. And I think that's the greatest blessing for me, at least.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. And you make connections. You'll always have
Yeah,
those.
thank you.
Amazing.
What's next for you,
Well,
both
so
in
many things.
barbecue and in your mission to support young girls?
So many
Any new
things. So
project you're passionate about or excited to pursue?
yes, sir. So media is going to be a big thing, and through that media, I hope to benefit quite a few people. So we're going to be pitching a pilot to several people, as a matter of fact, a global barbecue show as well as a local Houston-centric barbecue show with a co-host of the midday show here in Houston. Her name's Tessa Barrera. She does a 4-hour radio show. Then she goes and does the midday show on the NBC affiliate here. So she's a very hardworking girl, very pro girl as well. And we hope to benefit as many young folks as we can via the media aspect of things, as well as contributing physically, like going out with the barbecue team and devoting our donating our time with them and helping to mentor them, along with the media plans. There's cookbooks in the making. We've done our 13 challenge winning recipe cookbook that's dropped already on texasq.com, and that's 13 challenge winning recipes for Barbecue Showdown Season 3, amazing century-old recipes, and then new crafty ones that I won on the spot with. So those are really interesting. And then our brisket book will be out soon. We have additional sauces, additional rubs, and all kind of good stuff going on. So TexasQ.com. And then also, really, the first quarter next year, I plan to be spending a lot of time in Europe. And I'm quite certain, Gabriel, that I'll be able to smoke some barbecue for you, man, and feed you. That's my goal.
Absolutely. That sounds amazing. I would
Absolutely.
love that actually.
I
Very
would love
much so.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Look forward to that. And
So a lot of things going on. But TexasQ.com, if anybody's interested in us, all our social media and all of our merch and everything leads from there.
awesome. So amazing. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was an inspiration talking to you, and I'm so grateful. And I'm excited for you about everything that's coming up in your life and in your future, in your personal future. And I'm excited about girls who are listening to this and younger girls, right, who are listening to this. And I'm certain that they will be inspired by just your journey. And so thank you for being vulnerable, for sharing your personal story, and for being an inspiration. And
Oh,
also for
thank you.
making some
Thank you,
kick-ass
Gabriel.
barbecue, I hear. So
I really, it's a goal right now to make sure you get some. So I'm going to have to be in
yes,
Sweden. I'm visualizing
awesome,
that
awesome.
already, man. Okay.
Yes, I like that. I like that.
It's been my pleasure. And I truly have enjoyed it tremendously. Thank you so much, Gabriel, for having me.
Thank you.